there's one Final Fantasy battle system that perfectly represents the series' willingness to experiment, it's probably Final Fantasy VIII. Because the junction system doesn't just tweak traditional RPG mechanics, it completely redefines them. When most RPGs ask how do characters get stronger, the answer is usually simple. Gain levels, buy better equipment, learn stronger spells. Final Fantasy VIII looked at all of that and said, what if magic itself became the equipment? And that single idea shaped the entire game. The first thing VIII changes is how magic is obtained. Normally in Final Fantasy, spells are permanent abilities. You learn fire once, and now you know fire forever. But in VIII, magic became a consumable resource. You didn't learn cure, you stocked cure. That distinction matters. Using the draw command, characters could pull magic directly out of enemies or special environmental draw points scattered across the world. So instead of unlocking spells traditionally, you were collecting them. You might have 27 fires, 56 blizzards, 100 cures. Magic almost functioned like ammunition, and immediately that changed how players thought about spells, because now every cast had value attached to it. Casting Faraga wasn't just using a spell, it was spending part of your inventory. But drawing magic was only the beginning. The real heart of the system was junctioning. And honestly, this is the moment where VIII either clicks for players or completely loses them. Because instead of equipping armor traditionally, you attach spells directly to your character stats. Want more HP, junction healing magic like Kuraga? Want higher strength? Attach offensive magic like Ultima. Want elemental resistance? Junction elemental spells to defense. Magic became stat customization, and then the more copies of a spell you had stocked, the stronger the bonus became. So having 100 Faragas equipped to strength was significantly stronger than having 12. That's where VIII became less like a traditional RPG and more like a build crafting system. You weren't just choosing gear, you were engineering characters. And because almost every spell affected stats differently, experimentation became incredibly important. Some spells were amazing for HP, others massively boosted speed, others transformed elemental resistance. So progression wasn't just about finding better weapons, it was about understanding how magic interacted with the junction system. Then the game added another layer on top. In order to junction magic to stats at all, characters needed Guardian Forces. VIII's version of summons. But Guardian Forces weren't just giant cinematic attacks. Mechanically, they functioned more like living equipment systems. Each GF unlocked new junction abilities. One GF might allow strength junctions, another unlocked HP junctions, another enabled status attack effects. So instead of equipping armor sets, you were effectively equipping magical systems onto characters. And because GFs could also learn abilities over time, there was another progression layer constantly evolving underneath the surface. This made VIII incredibly customizable. But it also made it overwhelming for new players, because the game rarely explained the system particularly well. And honestly, even today, many players finish VIII without fully understanding how powerful junctioning can become. Now here's where the system becomes truly unconventional. Most RPGs reward leveling up, but in VIII, leveling could actually make the game harder, because enemies scaled with your level. So if you simply grinded experience traditionally, enemies often became stronger too. Meanwhile, the real source of power came from junctions. That meant a low-level character with excellent junction setups could become absurdly powerful. Far stronger than a high-level character with poor spell management. This completely inverted normal RPG logic. Players who understood the system could break the game wide open incredibly early. And that became part of VIII's identity. It's one of the most exploitable Final Fantasy systems ever created. But there was one design choice that divided players more than anything else. Using magic reduced your stock, and because your stats were tied directly to stocked spell quantity, casting spells could lower your stats. So imagine this. You junction 100 Karagas to HP. Your health becomes massive, but every time you cast Karaga, your stock drops. 100 becomes 99, then 98, then 97, which slowly lowers the HP bonus attached to that stat. That created a strange psychological effect. Many players stopped wanting to cast magic at all. Instead, they hoarded spells purely for stat bonuses, which is ironic because Final Fantasy games traditionally encourage spell casting. In VIII, the system sometimes discouraged it, and even decades later, fans still debate whether that was brilliant design or a fundamental flaw, because on one hand it forces resource management and strategic planning, but on the other hand, it can make players afraid to engage with the magic system entirely. And then VIII did something absolutely wild. One of the strongest progression systems in the entire game wasn't combat, it was the card game. Through the card mod and refinement abilities, players could transform triple triad cards into rare spells, items, and upgrade materials, which meant skilled card players could gain access to incredibly powerful magic ridiculously early. So yes, In Final Fantasy VIII, becoming overpowered could involve playing cards more than fighting monsters. That sounds absurd. But somehow it fits perfectly with VIII's strange design philosophy. The reason people still talk about the junction system today is because there's really nothing else quite like it. It blurred the lines between magic, equipment, character builds, resource management, progression systems. Everything was interconnected. And once players understood those connections, the game transformed completely. Some people hated how unintuitive it felt, others loved how breakable and customizable it became. But regardless of where you stand, the junction system remains one of the boldest combat experiments in Final Fantasy history. Because it didn't just try to improve traditional RPG systems, it tried to reinvent what an RPG progression system could even be. And honestly, that's probably why Square never attempted anything quite like it again. And that's all for this video on the junction system used in Final Fantasy VIII and what made it so controversial. Do you think the criticism Square received for the junction system was fair, or would you like to see them revisit the system in other titles? Drop your opinions in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.